Hello everyone, this is Hank. I'm back for another episode. Today we are going to talk about menu number 7. This one. Okay, so this has 6 items mainly having to do with the autofocus of the EOS RP. So we're going to go from top to bottom at first. AF operation. Okay, the EOS RP allows us to choose either one-shot mode or the servo mode. Now, I have made a separate video to talk in detail the differences between the two modes. So I'm going to provide a link in the description, and we are not going to talk too much about that in this video. Alright, so the next one is the AF method. Okay, the EOS RP allows us to be able to choose one of the 6 available AF method here. Okay, start out with is the face tracking. All right, the face tracking is basically what it says. So if you set that to the face tracking method, the camera is going to look for human faces and put the focus on that. Okay, now the RP does not do animal faces. It's only do human faces. So this is a great mode to be if you are taking pictures of people, because it's automatically go and grab the closest face to the camera. It saves you a lot of time. And of course it is capable of doing the eye tracking as well, but that's a different menu item, so we're going to save that for when we talk about that. Okay? Now the next one is the spot AF. What this is allow you to pick just one little spot. Okay, and so this is very selective. So you can use that to select just a single spot, which is fairly big actually. It's probably, for an average face in the middle of the screen, would be cover an eye easily. So that's what you do. Okay, now the next one is a 1-point AF. 1-point AF is bigger than the spot, but it's still pretty small. So if you want to isolate something to focus on, that is what you use the 1-point AF. And then you have the expand AF areas. Basically you're using a 1-point AF, except that you have 4 additional surrounding points to help you. Okay, see, this is good for moving objects and stuff like that is kind of moving and you're trying to track it with the 1-point AF, and sometimes it get out of the frame, you lose focus. So the 4 points are going to help you. Similarly, this one, instead of 4 points, it gives you 8 points to help you. Okay, I use this, what I call a 9-point focus, exclusively when I'm taking action pictures, especially birds in flight. Okay, so I use the middle one to focus on the bird's eye. Then, since the birds are moving around a lot, sometimes I miss focus. And the 8 surrounding points are going to pick the focus up for me. So that's really useful. Okay, last but not least is the zone AF. So basically, when you choose this one, you basically tell the camera, just use all of the available autofocus points to make the selection. Now this is pretty tricky because normally the EOS RP, like most Canon cameras, the logic is to look at the closest object. So when you have this one, whatever is closest is going to grab that one. Okay, so now unfortunately closest object is not always the object that you want. Okay, so in that case you might run into a problem. You don't have very much control with this. So use it with caution. Understand what it's doing. Always pick the closest object to focus on. Alright, Now with this 6 one, My favorite is the face tracking. I practically use this thing 90% of the time, unless I'm shooting action. Okay, so I'm going to select that. Now I want to show you one more thing. Okay, now there's an option that you can like disable some of these AF methods that you don't use. Okay, so for example, what you do is you go to the menu here and you go to the orange one, which is this one, and you choose the autofocus. Okay, and then you select it, you go to number 5. I just happen to have number 5. Okay, so you go to number 5 there, you hit the set button, and then you can deselect the ones you don't want. For example, just for example, I don't want this one, and I don't want, example, this one, right? Just for the sake of example. Okay. Now, look what happened when I go back to the red menu. Okay, so the 2 that I deselect is no longer selectable. Okay, so you can save some time by blocking it out if you don't ever use it. Now, personally, I want to be able to use all of them, so I'm going to go back and reset them. Like that. And then oops, sorry. Twitchy fingers. All right. So now everything's selectable again. All right. Okay. Let's talk about eye detection. I mentioned this. So, see, this thing is going to gray out unless you choose AF face tracking. Eye detection is defaulted disabled, so you have to turn it on. Okay, so you go in here and you change to enable if you want the camera to pick up the eye. And again, it's going to pick up the eye closest to the camera. That's the logic. All right. And I don't think the RP allows you to switch eye. Okay, so you kind of are stuck with the eye that's closest, but that's good enough. Okay, what about continuous AF? Continuous AF is when you enable it, it focuses all the time. Okay, so basically if you have selected a focus point or an object, it will try to focus 100% of the time. Now, this probably is useful when you are like taping yourself and stuff like that. But normally it's kind of annoying, so I always disable it. All right. Now, touch and drag. Basically, touch and drag is like when you enable it, you will be able to touch the LCD, and you can do the focus through there. Okay, the default is disable. So if you want that, you can enable it. I recommend that, try that, and normally it is a good idea to turn it on. And now the positioning method, you have the difference between absolute and relative. Now, absolute is you got to kind of put your finger in the absolute area of the screen in order to affect the position. Now that is usually impractical. Okay, so you don't really want absolute, because most of the time, because our face are in the viewfinder, and you find that you cannot reach all of the areas in the LCD when you're doing these, when you're doing the touch and drag and stuff like that. So relative is a lot better. So I recommend that you just leave it on relative. What you want to do is to play around with both and see. Maybe some people would like it better with absolute. I always use relative. All right, and then active touch area. Similarly, as I mentioned before, if half your face are covering the left side, and then it is better if you only activate the right side, because your face is going to move the stuff, especially your nose. Okay, so it's up to you. You have a choice of choosing left, right, bottom, top, right. I just like the right, because the way that I look at mine, my nose is on the left screen. So my nose is going to be out of the way, and it doesn't accidentally activate the autofocus points and stuff like that. Okay, so you play with it, choose the right one. I think the default right is just right for me, so I leave it at that. Okay. All right, so the last one is kind of interesting. This is focus mode. So you have a choice between AF and MF. Now, normally, if you have a lens that has the AF MF button on the lens, then you don't really need to go into this manual. Now, Canon start making a whole bunch of RF lenses that don't even have this button. Okay, for example, I'm using right now the 24 to 240 RF lens, and it doesn't have this button. So if I want manual focus, I got to go in here. So this is the button that you use to get into manual focus for some lenses. All right, with that, I would like to thank you very much. I hope that was of help. I will be back with another episode. By the way, there's a 9 option for the red tab. The next video I'm going to talk about number 8, but I will not talk about number 9 because I don't use the video feature of the RP at all. So I would be not helping you very much talking about video because I don't know anything about it. Okay, so we got one more video to talk about number 8, and we will be done with the red tab. Thank you. Bye now.